Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the School Transportation Nation podcast. I'm Tony Corbin, publisher of School Transportation News, and this episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software.
And hello, everyone. I am Taylor Hannon, the STN Associate Editor. A little bit later, I'll be talking with Anthony Shields. He's the Assistant Transportation Director at Hays Consolidated Independent School District in Texas.
All right, Taylor, so it's official. Ryan's on paternity leave. He's got a new baby boy. Came about 4 weeks early. So Taylor is going to be our co-host here on the podcast going forward for quite a while he takes a little time with his family. So congratulations to the Gray family, growing a little bigger.
Yeah, secret's out now, Tony. Wishing Ryan and his family the best of luck during this time. And, I'm happy to be sitting in and talking to you on all the great things happening in school transportation.
Absolutely. And we'll kick off with some news here. I don't know if you've noticed, Taylor, but it feels like summer, right? I mean, it's getting a little warmer. I know my kids, they're getting out of school, first grade graduation coming here mid-June. A lot of schools around the country are starting to get out now. I know we're talking summer school too for many folks. And you grabbed some data that we had gathered from our readers talking about that trend or the increase in summer school activity. You want to share a little bit with our audience?
Yeah, so there'll definitely be more on this in the July issue. So this is just a little tease for y'all. But it looks like 16% of 80 respondents said that their state is requiring summer school due to learning losses experienced from COVID-19. So that's interesting. I don't know if that's ever been required before, but transportation services are kind of ramping up a little bit for a robust summer school program. And more than half actually said that their summer school program this year is more intense than in years past. More students are signing up, because of that virtual learning. A lot more students want to have that in person, catch up on some of that work that they missed out on. And so transportation is definitely going to play a huge role there, transporting these students to and from school.
Yeah, I know a few months back, we kind of had discussed, Taylor, a little bit about the lack of enrollment because of people's comfort level, obviously, with COVID and everything happening. And, I think the more time that passes, people are just becoming more and more comfortable. The masks are coming off. We're seeing big sporting events. Last week, we saw, over the Memorial Day weekend, the Indianapolis 500 happening, big crowds again. I'm starting to see more and more of this. And, when we're going out in public, I know that's that point where people are like, all right, when can we take the mask off? We're vaccinated now. California's got that June 15th kind of deadline for masks to come off as well. I know some states have pushed back. But for us, I feel a lot better feeling vaccinated, starting to walk around, not feeling as paranoid, I guess. And I think the same goes for probably parents' comfort levels. And it's going to be varied by degree, but higher enrollment in summer school, schools being open for the 21-22 school year, Taylor, I see that being a really good thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, Tony, I definitely think there's a lot more comfortability out there just with the whole situation going on. NBC News reported that confirmed coronavirus cases in the U.S. have fallen to levels not seen since March 2020. So if that's any indication, we have definitely come out of this a whole, 15 months later, and it seems like people are finally a little comfortable now, taking off the masks, sending their kids back to school. My mom just met up with an old girlfriend who came in from Georgia, so there's definitely that let's see people again, let's go do things, let's go out to eat, let's have a little bit more of our lives back that we were stuck in quarantine for almost a year.
Yeah, but the big problem is, Taylor, we're back to normal. Driver shortages, mechanic shortages. Everybody that I know that I've talked to in transportation is like, yep, looking for more drivers. But hey, we were staffed up pretty well during COVID times. But now that we're going to go back to normal enrollment, we need drivers. And I'm going to start to see more and more driver ads out there, people looking, how do we do it? And I think the age old problem is, let's not go back to doing it the same way we always have, guys. I mean, putting banners on the sides of your school buses, putting in yard signs. We got to get a little more sophisticated, because realistically, people go to your website first, right? If they're looking to hire drivers, they want to find out about the culture of your organization. They want to find out what you stand for. They want to find out all about the position. What's their life going to be like working for the school district's transportation department? And many transportation departments, I can't find anything about the school transportation department. I see the school, but not much about transportation. So it's almost like you have to have your own kind of independent landing page or community. Maybe that's social media. Maybe that's like keeping your social media more updated. I know a lot of transportation departments do post things on social media, but it's commingled with stuff that happens at schools. So I would really challenge you to redefine your hiring practices and how you're presenting yourself in a public way and how you're engaging your community to try to attract school bus drivers. It's just, that's a challenge that the industry has faced. And I think it just frankly comes back to getting more sophisticated with your marketing.
Yeah, Tony, I would agree. I think social media is a great platform to attract people, especially this new younger generation, because we are always on social media. So I think if I knew maybe about school busing when I was in college, I don't see why I wouldn't have done it, right? They work around your schedule. And I think that is such an avenue that school districts should take, is that social media and that hiring of college kids.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the older population too, right? So it's what motivates someone to be a school bus driver. Is it, hey, I need insurance, I need part-time hours, maybe I'm retired on my second or third career, and I'm just looking for something part-time that I can do. Maybe I'm an Uber driver. But I've got a commercial driver's license, or I want to drive, some hours and then off hours, or, there's potential there. It's just reaching out, I think, also to big business, like we've seen and we've discussed Amazon as being kind of a thorn in some of the transportation department side because they're taking the drivers. What about actually reaching out to Amazon and having a conversation saying, hey, we're looking for school bus drivers. Do you guys have this huge pool of drivers? Could you work with us to try to create some program with Amazon and the local school district? I bet you they jump at the chance to do that, but they're just not being communicated with to potentially achieve that, right? Create a plan, put it out there, see what happens. The worst thing they can do is say no. At least you've made the effort. But I feel like big conglomerates like Amazon have their tentacles in anything, and they've got really great drivers, and they are very sophisticated. So there's got to be a way for us to kind of bridge the gap here. And I think Amazon would probably love to get involved with school districts. We've seen that obviously with LA Unified. We talked about that a few episodes ago, trying to help students kind of find gainful employment. So it's just an interesting dilemma that we continue to deal with as an industry, Taylor. And I think we just kind of gotta we got to rethink the way we do things. And I think with COVID, it's created all this disruption in the market, in the way we communicate, that you can't go back to the old ways. That's just a recipe for failure.
Yeah. And not for nothing, Tony, hire from within, right? I have seen so many stories online of superintendent learns to drive a bus, teacher learns to drive a bus. Like, why not? I talked to this one lady who was a teacher and became a school bus driver. And she's a part of the Wisdom Profile series. And she was like, yeah, I was nervous at first, but just getting my foot in the door, getting out there, learning the school bus, and then realizing that, hey, this is something I can do before school, after school. I think just talking about that with school district employees could open up a whole nother door.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff, Taylor. I think this will be a great topic to kind of keep unpacking on future podcasts. So we'll keep getting into it. But before that, Taylor, I have a pop quiz for you today. What do you think? You ready for the pop quiz?
Haven't been in school for a while, but let's do it.
It's consider it like summer school, Taylor. We're like right on the edge. Okay, so it's like a summer school pop quiz. True or false, Taylor? TransFinder's powerful Route Finder Plus has artificial intelligence optimization embedded or baked into it. Is that true, Taylor? What do you think?
I'm going to go true.
You're right. That is true. Amazing. All right, question 2, true or false? TransFinder's award-winning Stop Finder parent app is multilingual.
Ooh, I'm going to say yes.
Yes, sí, se habla español. It is definitely, and they also speak French too. So English, Spanish, and French. Question 3, true or false? TransFinder's innovative Wayfinder driver app will allow users to simulate routes on their personal device wherever and whenever they want.
I hope that's true because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is true. Drivers can simulate routes from home long before they get behind the wheel. So you answered everything true, Taylor. You get an A, head of the class.
Whoa.
Congratulations. Put it on the refrigerator. And guess what, audience? If you didn't get 100%, that is okay. TransFinder is grading on a curve. You can email getplus@transfinder.com. And don't forget to write STN podcast in the subject line. You can also give them a call at 800-373-3609. Taylor, we both had the opportunity to attend Bus World Digital, kind of a new entrant. Bus World's been around. It's more of a global entity, more around the transit motor coach, but they sprinkled in just a little bit of school bus content. Some of the familiar folks, there was a session with some contractors. Kurt Mackison, the executive director of NSTA, had been the facilitator of a session talking a little bit about just kind of EV, what was happening. There was a lot of contractors on there. Claire Miller, who's the SVP of strategy marketing at First Student, she was sharing there during the session. And it was very interesting to hear just some of the comments. Again, they were reiterating the investment into EV. And I asked Claire a question during the session, which was, hey, when you're planning to buy these EVs, how do you balance for range, right? Because people are looking at what their range is today, 100-mile range. But what is the range you're going to need tomorrow or 5 years from now? And will battery technology be the same 5 to 10 years from now? And guess what? Battery technology is going to change enormously in that period of time. And she agreed with that comment, right? So I think when you're planning, you just got to be mindful that technology moves so fast. And it's just, there's all this innovation going on, Taylor. And then, one of the follow-up questions I had asked as well is, had Claire seen an uptick in school district clients requesting EV technology be injected into their district? So like existing First Student contracted clients. And she said, yes, there had been interest, some RFPs, but a lot of questions about how to go EV instead of diesel. So seems to be that there's a lot of information and fact finding going on, but those are kind of some of my big takeaways and conversations that I had during that session at Bus World Digital. How about you, Taylor? What did you take away from the session?
Yeah, so I actually was on the one with Tim Ammon and GP Singh. And it was great to see, those recognizable industry faces, right? Talking about the disruptions of technology and how we can use technology for fleet optimization, for, routing, for how, electric buses is a part of this new technology, and kind of bringing it back to the driver shortage question. How can electric buses be a selling point for people to drive? Like, yes, there is training that drivers have to go through because it's not a diesel bus, but maybe that's something that drivers are going to want to do. Like, hey, this new electric bus just got here at this district. I'm into that. I want to learn how to drive that. Like, sign me up. And so I think that conversation and where technology is going, I think, yes, it's been a disruption in the industry, but I think it's almost been a positive. We're seeing a lot of new things coming out of this new technology world.
Yeah, I think for younger people too, for me, I feel like if I'm younger, I'm like, electric school bus, like that sounds pretty cool. Like, sign me up. So I think this disruption could, I agree, help with potentially attracting a new driver base in the younger community because the technology aligns well with their ideology, right? They want to go green, they want to support the environment. It's kind of like people driving a Tesla, right? They want to be greener because an electric car is greener, right? So people just buy it simply because they want to do better for the environment. So I think younger people are in that mindset in general. So that might be a whole new conversation in terms of recruiting that you guys should really consider tying back your investment into EV and how maybe you get the opportunity to drive this brand new state of the art technology. So I 100% agree, Taylor. There's a lot there. And I know there were some other big headlines. I think our friends at Logan Bus, Corey Muirhead, who we had on a few weeks ago on the podcast, he had mentioned he was doing a ribbon cutting to be one of the first, or the first, correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, the first electric school bus in New York City. And he was very excited about that. And they did a ribbon cutting. You have some more info on that, Taylor?
Yeah, Tony, they had some local elected officials there, and it was kind of this big event. This first Type C electric school bus comes to New York City, right? Big news. There is a press release up on our website on it right now, and I believe we're in the works of writing a news article on it. So I encourage people who are interested to definitely check that out at stnonline.com.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about that is that was a retrofit. That is not a brand new bus, right? That is a retrofit. There was a technology company called UES that was involved. Corey talked about the charging system, I think, with Rhombus. So there's a few different players that are coming into the market to offer EV solutions at a lower price than buying new. Now, there's pros and cons to both, right? You have to consider the cost. You have to consider a purpose-built product. So there's definitely big conversation around this. But my point to this, Taylor, is that the traditional model that school bus manufacturers have had over the years, which were the big three, right? Bluebird, Thomas, IC Bus. You've also had obviously a newer entrant in Lion Electric and going all electric. Originally, they had a diesel solution and they sunsetted it and decided to just push all their chips into electric. And so now you've got that. And right, they really don't have a huge dealer network, Lion. They've got more of these experience centers that they're popping up all over the place, a lot more like a Tesla model. So it almost challenges this very traditional dealer model that we've seen over the years. So it's interesting to see this shift. And now we had a big announcement from another company that some of you may or may not have heard of called BYD. So Build Your Dreams. It's a very large manufacturing company out of China, but they also have a huge manufacturing facility here in California, in Lancaster, offices in downtown LA. They are a huge player in electric, and they launched a brand new Type D school bus at a few varying sizes. So here comes another manufacturer that's got strong lineage in EV, but not in school bus. So what does this mean for the industry? Are we going to see more of these types of, say, transit bus manufacturers or motor coach manufacturers? Because typically those buses are much higher on the price point scale, right? School buses are much lower in terms of cost. So with EV pricing being a lot higher, they're obviously seeing the potential of all this federal money that's being proposed and hoping that, hey, they are the next opportunity or new company or technology that people will consider. So it's very interesting. And will we see more? And I think we will. It's just a matter of time, Taylor.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Tony. The third largest school bus contractor in the United States, Student Transportation of America, announced its electric vehicle pilot program, in which it plans to launch electric vehicles in different locations, different neighborhoods that have different traffic, weather patterns, that kind of thing, in which they're going to study how these electric vehicles interact in these climates. So it's a big move for them. They have kind of been looking at alternative fuel. I know they've replaced more than 2,000 diesel school buses with alternative fuel vehicles. So it's something they're certainly interested in, and they are looking at now, how these electric vehicles are going to react in these type of environments.
Yeah, I know Ron Halley, who has also been a speaker at the STN Expo, was put in charge of that new EV pilot program for Student Transportation of America. So very interested to see what their findings look like. We will keep in touch with them and all of that as those kind of unfold. But definitely there are some more ideal use cases for EV in specific environments, mountainous regions, cold regions, maybe a little tougher, where Southern California, perfect place, right? The weather is very nice. It's sunny. There's lots of opportunity charging things going on here that you can, park the bus, recharge, all that good stuff. So I think that's very interesting. And mentioning STN Expo Reno, which is going to be December 4th through the 9th, is going to have an extremely heavy educational program around EV, around alternative energy. So you can anticipate kind of the best of the best in terms of content at the conference. And registration is open now for STN Expo Reno, as well as STN Expo Indianapolis and the Transporting Students with Disabilities Conference. So if you go to stnexpo.com, you can get all the dates, information, sign up, book your hotel room. We'd love to see you again this fall, but that's some big stuff happening, Taylor, and STN's there to cover it. So I know there were some other headlines. I saw that Bluebird mentioned that they were charging ahead with 500 electric school buses in North America, which again, I feel like these milestones are getting larger and larger. The next press release we'll get is probably going to be 1,000 EV school buses from Bluebird. But everybody is kind of delivering more and more school buses out into the world. I know as part of that Busword virtual event, Todd Watkins, who was the STN's Transportation Director of the Year, he was also on that panel talking about what he was doing in Maryland and his program. And kind of they're going to slowly go into the water with EV. But, he had a lot of reservations because he did not have the funds other than the money to buy diesel buses. So how did he bridge the gap? So he talked a lot about that in his level of comfort and how he became more and more comfortable with the idea of this because he could afford to pay for it through creative funding through a group called HET, Highland Electric Transportation. So very interesting stuff, new innovative approaches. So those are sorts of things that are being talked about. Also, Proterra was on there as well, talking about the technology and how it's evolving. So I think ultimately it really just comes down to where is your comfort level to get into EV, right? Do you want to wait and watch everybody else kind of get into it? Some people are super pumped. They're like, yeah, let's go for it. Other people are kind of like, let's wait and see, right? Where do you guys fall on this? So that would be my take, Taylor. And I think as we see more research and more data, people are going to feel more comfortable with making an investment. Now, if the federal government comes out with any of this legislation, 20 billion, 25 billion, I think it's 46.6 billion in total, and any of that gets approved, yeah, people are going to feel a lot more comfortable because there's money. So we'll see what happens. But I think those are exciting trends that we're seeing more and more in the school bus industry. And that is the future of where we're headed. And I don't think anyone will deny it. That is where we're headed. Well, thanks for chatting with me on this, Taylor. I know you got a great interview coming up with Anthony Shields, so I'll let you get to it.
Hello, everyone. So I am back with Anthony Shields. He's the Assistant Transportation Director at Hayes Consolidated Independent School District in Austin, Texas. How you doing over there, Anthony?
Doing great. A little wet, but we're finally about to start drying out.
Yeah, that's what you were saying earlier. So what's going on? You guys are having a rainy summer?
We are officially in the Central Texas area as of right now, out of the drought stage in terms of rainfall and things like that. So yes, one could say we've had a lot of rain here in the last few weeks.
I'm sure you're excited for it to be drying up and getting warm.
Yeah, just a little bit. We want to go and be able to spend some time on the river and the lake and not have to, drive through them.
Yeah, that sounds nice. All right, perfect. Well, why don't you start by telling me a little bit of background on your guys' operations? Looking at a normal school year, how many routes are you running, students transported?
Yeah, so here in our district, in a normal school year, we would transport around 13,000 students. Of course, COVID has changed that a little bit. Our total student population is right at 22,000 students. We are a fairly large district distance-wise in the Central Texas area, so we cover a lot of territory. We have a combination of inner city and rural terrain, if you will. So that, of course, presents its challenges. And so during a typical school year, I typically have about 140 routes total, and that's with the tiered system for our campuses. We have a first, second, and third tier, so we're able to stack things together to make routing more efficient. But out of that, yes, about 140 routes. Of course, with COVID, that has changed things drastically. We went from about 13,000 students to, I think our highest counts that we had was about 5,600.
Wow.
Yeah, so it significantly changed things for us. We went from, like I said, the 140 routes to, I want to say 75, I think is what I had, which of course presented some challenges in terms of finding things for staff members to do and things like that, but we made it happen.
Okay. So kind of looking at last school year, what were some lessons learned from COVID-19 that maybe you're going to take in years to come?
Well, I think there's been a few good things that we've been able to take out of the pandemic. Of course, the hot topic right now is the additional cleaning of buses. I know there's pros and cons to some of the solutions that have been used to sanitize buses frequently due to COVID, but the practice in general is something that we're definitely keeping. We had purchased sanitizing backpacks for each bus. And so that is definitely a procedure that we are going to keep with us going forward. We are probably going to change out the actual solution that is in the backpacks once we get rid of the last batch to make it something that is still a disinfectant, but something a little less harsh on the seats and the surfaces and things like that. But that's certainly something that we're going to keep.
Okay.
One of the things that we also really liked was the additional use of hand sanitizer. So like everybody else, like every other district, we have a hand sanitizer location located at the front of the bus. We're going to go ahead and keep that as well. Those are two of the big takeaways on the bus that we're going to keep. As far as in our building, one of the things that I've personally liked is the structure, if you will, of the social distancing aspect. In our building, we kind of modeled it after some supermarkets right after lockdown, where they had one-way directional paths to certain parts of the facilities. And so we're going to keep that as well. That's worked out pretty well for us and our staff, especially kind of, if you think of a transportation center, a lot of times where the drivers pick up their keys and their route binders or whatnot, we commonly refer to that as Grand Central Station. And so it can sometimes get a little congested. So with us having one direction and them having to go one way in, one way out, that's made a huge impact on the flow of that traffic and has made things a lot easier in that regard. So we're going to keep that as well.
Okay. And so you guys were open for in-person learning all year then?
Yes, ma'am. We pushed the initial start of school. Our initial start of school was supposed to be, I believe, August 20th, but we did push it back to September 8th. And we kind of did a hybrid opening. Circling back around to your previous question, if I could keep something, that's one thing that I would keep. We did a hybrid opening where we opened for special needs students first, starting on September 8th. They went to school for 3 weeks. And then at the end of September, we opened in person at a reduced capacity for both regular ed and special needs. And so that was an awesome soft rollout, if you will. And that allowed us to kind of get some things taken care of by the time that we opened up.
Okay.
Every 6 or 9 weeks, I believe every 9 weeks, we had students transitioning from virtual to in person. And so every quarter, if you will, we would get more students in school and on the buses.
Okay. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in March, your governor went ahead and lifted that mask mandate. One of the first states, I believe, to do so. How did that kind of sculpt the rest of the school year for you guys? What was required on the buses? What kind of happened there?
Right. So yes, Texas was one of the first states that fully opened back up. However, most of the school districts in Texas did not change any of their policies until the end of the school year. So even though we opened up, we did not see any change during the actual school year. During summer school, some things have changed. We have relaxed our mask policy, but we've kept the social distancing procedures in place. And so we have not seen any significant backlash over that as of right now. Fingers crossed that it continues that way.
And you guys started summer school, what is it, last week?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Rocking and rolling.
Yeah. What does that look like? How's that going for you guys?
So it's going fairly well. One of the things that I noticed this year versus 2 years ago is our numbers for summer school are higher than they were the year before. And simply put, we did have so many students that were still virtual and were having trouble at home and did not pass a lot of core subjects. So they are now having to play catch up. So we are running, I believe I have almost 9 more summer routes than I did 2 years ago when we were at full capacity and everything was as quote unquote normal as possible. And so that's very interesting. Going back to your last question about things that have changed, the mask policy has changed as well. So masks are no longer required. We've also upped the capacity in our buses. So at the beginning of the school year, we were only transporting up to 24 students on a bus.
Wow.
Whereas now we're up to 48. So our buses are a little bit more fuller now. As the school year progressed, we were gradually making our way up to that. So it wasn't a big change come summer school, but for some of those routes, yes, it was.
Okay. And so your drivers are kind of adapting to that as well, a little bit more students on the bus. Are they going to be required to still wear the masks?
Our drivers are not required to wear the mask as well. They are asked to use them if they would like. Right now, for me, it's about 50-50. I have about half of my drivers that do want to continue wearing them and half of them do not. So
okay.
Since it's not a requirement, we do give them that choice.
Okay. And so going into the next school year now, are you guys kind of looking at any driver or perhaps maintenance shortages of staff? Are you guys doing okay then there?
Yes. So one of the things that we were very fortunate for during the beginning of COVID is we started out fully staffed because we had to cut so many routes and things like that. So it was, in that regard, it was perfect. But now that we're going back full steam ahead, we'll have a few open routes. And so we will have to go back to our handy drawing board to start doing some recruiting for driver positions. We also have a couple of mechanic positions open, which is unusual for us. But in doing a little bit of research, I have kind of an older generation of technician staff. And so a few of them are starting to retire. And so that is the reasoning behind that. So we're also going to be doing some recruiting for mechanics as well.
Okay. And what are some initiatives that maybe you guys are focusing on for this next school year?
In terms of hiring, we have an attendance bonus that we have for our drivers and monitors. For our technicians, we're very fortunate to pay very well. So that is a big bonus for a lot of people in the technician world. But back with the drivers and monitors, for our driver staff, they actually have the opportunity to work to make 8 hours a day. And so that's a huge opportunity for a lot of people. There are no districts around us that are offering 8 hours a day to every bus driver. And so we're excited to continue that. And we're hopeful that we'll get some people in the door due to that.
Okay. And what about technology initiatives or alternative fuel? Are you guys tapping into any of those realms at all?
Oh, yeah, we have a couple of things going on for us. We are in the final implementation stages of a student tracking or student accountability program. It's been a pretty good labor of love. I started it about 2 years ago, and then, of course, the pandemic hit. But it was one of those things where I think the pandemic helped us do a slow but great rollout of it because we had the opportunity to kind of fine tune a lot of the kinks and things like that since we didn't have a lot of students riding the bus. But that's been tremendous, and I'm looking forward to, like I said, our final phase of implementation, which is the one-stop shop for the bus passes or badges. They're now going to actually become student ID cards, and so not only will they be used on the bus, but they'll be used on the campus as well as a form of ID. They'll also use it in the lunchroom, and they'll also use it in the libraries as well. So we're excited for that. We are also excited that that card management is going to be at the campus level as well. So we won't have the mundane task of printing out several hundred cards every day. So that'll be nice. And then we also, the program that we're using comes with a parent app or parent portal where the parents can kind of track the status of their child's bus. And so we're excited for that to launch out here in the fall as well. In terms of alternative fuels, we are very fortunate. One of the things that the pandemic gave us was time sometimes. And so we were able to really look and research the different grants available for alternative fuels. We did apply for a Texas-based grant, and we were awarded one of those grants. So we are officially going to be in the alternative fuel business. I think I have 10 propane buses coming here in the middle or end of September. So we're really excited about that. That's been an adventure, just getting quotes and looking at specs and then dealing with the infrastructure. It's been kind of cool. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Okay, so you guys are going to put propane infrastructure on site then?
So yes, one of the things that I researched about alternative fuels with the infrastructure is the type, the size, and things like that of said infrastructure. We're kind of going to go and do a rollout of that as well. I'm going to start the year with mobile fueling, and I'm currently in the process of getting an RFP set up for actual fueling infrastructures so that we can go ahead and get started on construction. My hope is that construction will start in December and then hopefully finish next summer.
Okay. Yeah, that is exciting. You guys got a lot of things going on over there.
Yeah, a lot of good things happening.
Were you able to tap into any federal programs? So any of that federal American Rescue Plan funds or any other type of monies available out there to kind of help fund some of this?
So we have a director of state and federal programs here in our district, and she has been very, very instrumental in not only this year, but every year in finding types of services for the district. And we're very fortunate that she did this year as well. Our district is set to receive quite a significant amount of money back from some grant that she applied for. And we're excited that we're getting to use some of that money in transportation. We're actually using it towards our student accountability software.
Okay.
Kind of the maintenance of the student accountability software, buying new badges and things like that for the students. So we're able to do that. And plus, we're also using it to help recoup the cost of some of the additional sanitizing products that we've purchased for our department. So that's really exciting as well.
Yeah, that's great that you were able to find that and use it, especially now.
Yes, very much so. I know that a lot of districts are going to be really looking for opportunities to offset the deficit that would have come from the pandemic. So anything that we can get, of course, we're going to want to tap into it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Anthony, for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights and knowledge with us. It was greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate y'all.
All right, that was an excellent interview from Anthony Shields. Taylor, thank you so much for walking out everything that they're doing there at Hayes ISD. It is just really innovative, and I think as we evolve as an industry, there's a lot of nuggets of information you guys can glean from that interview that I think will help you as you go into summer school and into the new school year. So definitely keep an eye on the stnonline.com website for all the latest news and information. Special thank you to our episode sponsor, TransFinder. We couldn't do it without you. Don't forget, you can stream, review, share this podcast with all the friends in your ecosystem, repost our links, share it amongst your friends, text people, get the good word out about the School Transportation Nation. We love you listeners, and also be sure to register for STN Expo and the TSD Conference. Open now, stnexpo.com for all that information. We will see you next week, Nation.